Welcome to Summer Blink, where we give away hundreds of billions in free items weekly, and we hand out over $1 trillion in lotto winnings daily. Summer Blink, micro lotteries that finish in minutes.
Hey everybody, Spence here from the Tactical Entertainment Network, bringing you another issue of TEN Evening News. This is another special for the week. It just seems like this is a week full of special episodes. We're going to sit down and talk with Two Step and Seleene of the CSM. Just do a little town hall wrap-up and talk about some other things, ramble on a little bit. Hope you enjoy. Tomorrow, Friday, May 25th, I'll have a nice extended news episode for you with some Inferno information, as well as a special guest, the Matani. So please join us for that special news episode as well. And now, on to Two Step and Seleene. Mark Scoris wanted me to tell you not to go off on tangents about plowing and fertilizing fields and shit.
Hey.
So, I don't know what that's about, but...
No comment.
Yeah, that was, we're gonna plow some fields at CCP and fertilize them with our ideas. That was the,
Okay. All right, then.
You have to bear in mind that this was done on Voices of the Void with Danny, and Danny is just, she's a freak, so...
She's hilarious.
She is. I like her. A lot of fun. This is awesome. I just got a 200,000K wand for 10K on the auction house in Diablo.
I was just browsing the auction house myself.
I have just I finally figured out a couple days ago that the game isn't the game is the auction house. It ain't got shit to do with the monsters you kill.
There's a lot of really cheap people put some shit up really cheap on there.
Well, I ground up. I mean, my highest character is a wizard right now, and I'm having a fucking blast with that shit. But what killed me was I ground up to about level 20 something, and before I even looked in the auction house.
Yeah, I just looked now. I'm level 16. That was the first time I looked.
Yeah, and I was looking at this shit, and I'm just like, man, I got to get rid. I need this one thing. I couldn't find like a pair of pants that were worth a shit, and I got on the auction house, and I had something like 40,000 gold, and I'm just like, holy shit! I was broke instantly. It was awesome.
I haven't even picked up the damn game yet. I'm afraid.
Well, yeah, I just bought it on Sunday because I was like, I should try this Diablo thing. All the CCP people are talking about it, you know.
Well, I just finally, because I have this we're fucking gamers. I have this addictive personality, so I just finally picked up Skyrim like 2 weeks ago.
I completely skipped Skyrim because I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know. There's something about the earlier Elder Scrolls games that just doesn't I don't like it somehow. There's something just off about it, and I'd never really gotten into them.
Josh, all I can tell you is I played a lot of Morrowind, but I could never get into Oblivion. There was just something about those games that just, I don't know, I'd get a while into them, but Skyrim, holy fuck, dude. I mean, that game it took over my damn life for like a month. Well, hell, you remember what it was like in November? The fucking CSM channel was dead. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I literally totally fucking missed a day of work last week and didn't even realize I did because I was playing that damn game. I looked up and I was like, oh shit. So yeah, that's bad. And I'm not into the RPGs. And I was like, wow, this is just so amazing. My little thief is so cool. I can pickpocket anyone. This is great. So yeah, I had to kind of distance myself from that game for a few days, just so I don't lose my family or anything.
The Inferno teaser is up.
Oh yeah, you didn't see that?
No, I'm checking it out.
Oh, yeah, you should take a minute out of this. You can be AFK in the beginning and watch that thing. It's great.
Am I gonna jizz all over the place?
Josh.
Well, I mean, it's a little short. I felt like, and it didn't. I actually really liked the ones that told a story. The one they did with the people who warped off and tackled people, where we helped them write the dialogue so it didn't sound retarded.
Yeah, that was Well, no, that was Dominion's.
Was that Dominion?
Well, Dominion was the one. Dominion was.
No, that was the Incarna one because he turned into the character creator one. It was the character creator patch. Yeah. I don't know. I always like those ones, and the whole butterfly effect and all those ones. I like those much better than the ones that are just we're just going to show you some pretty pictures.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the town hall meeting. I got to tell you right up front, guys, I did not make it. So I'm kind of coming in a little bit blind. And
that's all right. I only made half of it,
Yeah.
But so I'd love to hear how it went. And I know a lot of our folks weren't able to, make it due to time constraints or whatever. But, how'd it go?
What happened was we originally planned to do it on eVoice. And eVoice was going to, we were going to get CCP to help set up the channel and do the recordings and all that other stuff. But then I found out literally a few days before we were scheduled to do it CCP Diagorist had checked into it, and apparently the volume of people that we were expecting to have was something that would have literally required them to get in touch with the Vivox people or something to do some kind of technical wizardry. I didn't quite understand everything he tried to tell me, but then again, he didn't really go into a lot of detail. He said, like, it would probably be a good idea to try and find an alternative to this. And we didn't want to repeat what happened last time with the first big town hall meeting in CSM 6 where it was held on Goon TS, and there were a lot of people that didn't want to go onto Goon TS for whatever reason. So we wanted to try and find a neutral ground that was easily accessible and wouldn't require people to download a third-party client, and Eve Radio just kind of seemed like the best way to do it. Click on one thing and boom, you're live and you're listening to what's going on. That was kind of how we ended up on Eve Radio, and we did the announcement about close to 2 days ahead of time of the change of venue and letting everybody know, hey, email Hans and Two Step your questions and go from there. And so that's where that was the genesis of where it all came up. As far as the meeting itself went, it could have probably been a little better structured, but overall it was just kind of informal. We were just taking questions from that had been emailed to our two secretary guys and picking and getting a few off of Twitter and a couple off of the forums as well. We were also in the Eve Radio channel, the CSM Townhall channel in game, and I think we did fairly good with the questions that we were asked. And if anybody was disappointed out there with some of the answers they got, well, then we're going to be doing another town hall a couple weeks or so after we go to the summit next week, and they'll have another chance to give it a shot then and try and ask us the things they'd want to.
And I'd say that, I guess there maybe are some complaints about the structure and stuff, but the entire point of this thing was to be informal and approachable and to answer just about all the questions we got. Other than the really obvious troll questions, we really tried to answer everything. The point of these things is not just to have some, the CSM will pass down their vision from on high. It's to explain our positions and to say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Or, do you really think that, mining is okay? Or, all the things that were asked. That's the point. It's so that people know how their CSMs think, especially, going into the summit, which is happening next week, as Seleene said. We have to be representing the players at those summits. We have to say, how we feel and how the players would feel about the various ideas CCP might have for what should be in the next expansion. So, getting everyone on the same page, I think, is important. And I think having it be somewhat informal and somewhat free-flowing and all of that is good.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to make sure about, and something that Two Step and I are very fixated on in terms of improving communication and trying to make the CSM a little bit more transparent than the last one, is that I take nothing away from Mitten's skills as an orator, but he does tend to dominate whenever he does like this sort of thing. And I wanted to make sure that this was the first time that we were doing a big thing like this as a CSM, and I wanted to try and make sure that everybody on the CSM, if they wanted a chance to say something, they had a chance to say something, and that this CSM at least is vocally and more transparently representative than just the mind control laser type of thing that everybody seemed to think that CSM 6 was. Some people think that was a better way to do things, but we're going to try it a little bit different this time and be a bit more cosmopolitan, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Although it is worth pointing out, I guess, despite the claims that Mittens, was dominating he was dominating the talking and things like when we actually did these town hall type things, fireside chats, we called them in CSM 6. Mm-hmm. But he would talk more, but that doesn't actually reflect accurately, I think, the way that the actual CSM stuff went. I think people were much more willing to speak their mind and do all those sort of things and on the forums and in the summits. I don't want people to think that it really was Mittens mind controlling. Although I do think CSM 7, we have a larger mix of kind of all the different types of gameplay than we did in CSM 6, which I felt like, especially if you looked at the top 9, then a lot of them were kind of the same point of view, nullsec, heavy nullsec focused type of thing. And now we have a lot less of that, I think.
Yeah, CSM 7, I think, as much is a is a much more diverse and representative group than 6 was, just kind of overall. But I mean, what Two Step said is very true. Even though, I mean, but to a lot of people, perception is reality, and because Mittens was kind of the face on, for a lot of what CSM 6 did, a lot of people just, took it to be that's just the way it was. So we're trying to start early on to make sure that people understand that, CSM 7 does have a very, a lot of people that fall under its umbrella, and we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to hear from everyone that wants to say something in public.
Well, critical about it or not, the fact of the matter is you guys did promise to do something, and you did carry it out, whether it came off perfectly as a diamond or it's still a work in progress. You did it, and there's something to be said for that. How was the showing, both from the CSM and from the community?
Well, the community at the Eve Radio guy said that at peak we had 1,175 people on. It started out right at the beginning of the show a little under 400, and it ramped up relatively quickly, and then somewhere around by an hour in, it had gone over 1,100 people. I'd meant to, but I didn't get a chance to. I'm not sure how many people have downloaded the actual podcast version of it yet, but I mean, it was the in-game channel had about 200 some odd people in it that were asking questions in there. Twitter was going pretty well. I think we had there's 13 members on the CSM, and I believe at peak we had 9 actual CSM members in the Skype channel available to answer questions. So, not bad.
No, not bad at all. Good. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, how was the overall mood? I mean, last year we had the Summer of Rage, then we had Crucible. Everybody seemed to be pretty happy. How was the overall mood of the event?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. This year has got a couple of new people, especially some new people with a lot of enthusiasm who came into it, and it's pretty eye-opening, I must say, coming from last year when I was a new person on the CSM. You come in with these grand expectations, even though, it's kind of the people who are on the CSM, I think we try and do a really clear job of explaining that you don't have as much influence as everyone thinks you have, but you always think you're going to change that and it's going to be different. So I think in general, the mood of the CSM is, people are running into reality and realizing that, hey, I can't just say, snap my fingers and, these things will happen. And it can be frustrating to be in that position because the players still really expect that you have that ability. And no matter how many times you seem to tell them you don't, they still say, when are you going to fix this? And you say, well, I don't fix anything. All I can do is ask that it be fixed. And do you really want me to say to fix that instead of this other thing? I mean, it's all a matter of priorities. Like, we can, scream and yell and stamp our feet and all that sort of stuff, and maybe we can get 1 or 2 things done that way. But if we convince and cajole and make good arguments, maybe we can get 10 or 12 things done. So, it can be really difficult, and it can be, somewhat eye-opening, I think, for the CSM members. And I think the public still doesn't really have a great grasp of what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, as Two Step said, I think that the CSM as a whole is is a continually evolving thing, and the whole Eve community. Every time that we put out like some dev blog letter, every time that we do a summit report, every time that we do one of these town hall type things, a little bit more understanding comes to at least another group of people that are involved. I mean, there's threads on the forums. I mean, there was a guy a couple of days ago that still literally believes that the CSM is supposed to be like another division of internal affairs for CCP. We're supposed to be like the Tech 2 BPO police or whatever you want to call it. And that is absolutely not what the CSM was ever supposed to be about as a whole, and that's not what we are today. And I think that the longer that this grand experiment continues, the more people will start to understand exactly what the CSM can and cannot do, and they will, and hopefully more people will vote, and those votes will, continue to put people in a position that can work with CCP and not, as Two Step said, we're not designers. You got to know how to talk to them, and you got to know what to say and how to say it. And it's a social game, and it's a social organization on both sides of it.
Had a couple of points real quick. Did you notice any common themes to the questions? Was there anything that seemed to be a big focal point for the questions that were submitted.
Yeah, factional warfare.
Really? I don't know. So I got all the questions emailed to me, and I think the common thing I saw was I think there's communities of people within EVE who feel they are neglected, and I think in the past faction warfare used to be one of those communities, but I think right now to me there's two big communities that seem to be very vocal and very much feel that they are ignored, and those are kind of the mining industry people and then the Incarna people. It's somewhat amazing to me that there's still a very vocal, I think they're a huge minority, but group of people who believe that last summer and the whole, Summer of Rage and the JITA and all that stuff, that was a huge mistake in the community. It was these crazy people led CCP astray, and that CCP really should have been concentrating on Incarna the whole time. And every chance they get, they bring up, when is CCP going to be putting another 150 people back onto Incarna? And so there's a lot of questions about that. I mean, some of those are very simple questions. I mean, we had a question like, when can I get a top hat to go with my monocle? And, stuff like that. So that's minor things. But then there's a bunch of people who are like, where's my damn establishments and all this sort of stuff. And so that's one big thing. And then the mining and industry people, I mean, they are actually neglected. And I feel like they have, in my view, a more legitimate complaint, because there's a few really, really simple fixes that CCP could make to make a bunch of that stuff so much easier. I mean, my favorite one is industry. When I right-click on a blueprint and say build, why do I have to pick which assembly line? Why can't it default to the first available assembly line in the place where the blueprint is?
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be smart? I mean, like that would save me like 10 clicks every time I do a build job, and it would be like half the time. And so there's so many of these really small kind of low-hanging UI fruit things from industry that you could fix so quickly that would just make a world of difference for people. And so I like those guys. I feel like they have a solid argument, and that's definitely something that I think a lot of the people in the CSM are planning on bringing up to CCP. I mean, there was, in theory, when the Orca came out, I think Quantum Rise was supposed to be the industrial expansion, and really there hasn't been anything done. And I think it's long overdue. And I know Seleene is behind this because he wrote a giant blog post and many, many words about it. But this is definitely something that CCP needs to at least put a team or two on for the upcoming expansion, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the basic thing that I've always been a giant Care Bear at heart. I love building things. I mean, even in like strategy games, I'm the guy that sits there and builds his giant friggin' base, and will build it to the nth degree until I finally send my armies forth, and so what. That aspect of this game has just been it's been as neglected as pretty much as anything else that you could name. There's just been nothing done with it for so long.
I mean, it seems worse to me than things like Faction Warfare. At least Faction Warfare had some, content added recently in the past couple of years, right?
But as Two Step said, I mean, it's in terms of priorities, the industrial part of the game, the mining part of the game, that stuff, those are core aspects of EVE. I mean, every single bullet you fire, every ship you fly, and everything else is built by somebody. That's a part of the spaceship flying in space part of EVE that, CCP said they were going to refocus on after they, went off the rails last year. A lot of people, it's not that I or any of the other CSM members, hate Incarna or hate the Avatar thing. I think this stuff is very cool. I think the technology behind it is amazing. I mean, you look at the character creator for EVE, and I mean, it's just, I think it's better than anything else out there. Yet, they had years. There's just no gameplay there, and that's the problem. And until CCP, it's not on the CSM, until CCP says, okay, we have this amazing idea to utilize this technology and integrate it into our spaceship game in some way. EVE is a game about flying around and blowing each other up and screwing each other over in the marketplace, or however you want to do it. At its core, that's the way it was for 7, 8 years before the Incarna stuff ever came out. The Incarna stuff is always just going to be another level added onto it. And while I think it's admirable and awesome that CCP made an attempt at that, they did it in admittedly half-assed. They didn't have a plan for gameplay behind it. And when someone comes up with an idea for gameplay as to how it will, fully integrate into the game, I think that you will see a lot more people willing to see some resources devoted to that. And no amount of lobbying by the CSM at this point, I mean, a lot of people just don't understand. This is a problem that CCP's got to solve internally. And all the suggestions and all the screaming and everything else that we make is not going to really change that. That being said, we did ask for, and we've got a session on, the state of Incarna. in the summit, because we are curious as to what they're doing with it right now, where they're going to take it. Hopefully, they'll have some ideas that they can tell us. And if they can take the team that they've got on it right now, and they can add, top hats and pirate eye patches and things like that, that's fine. But the core feature itself needs it needs something, and until they have that something, it's gonna linger. Unfortunately.
Well, I think the one thing I'd say about what CSM can lobby about, and I think what we are all pretty much united on, is that what we're lobbying for is that they must have that idea. That they cannot
absolutely.
go and put a pile of people onto Incarna stuff until they've presented the idea to us, presented the idea to the community at large. I think this shouldn't be the sort of feature that is a surprise. There's a dev blog a month before the release. This should be the sort of thing that 6 months before, before they've even started allocating resources into doing the design, the low level design and the development, they should say, hey, we want to have Incarna avatars do X, where X maybe is X. I mean, they showed this kind of exploration thing they were thinking about. I don't know. Maybe they have this sleigh game that they were talking about. Whatever. They've got to have some sort of plan, and they've got to actually convince the community. This is one of the things where they've burned their trust. They don't have the ability to say, trust us, Incarna will be awesome anymore. They lost that chance. They have to present it to us and convince us, and by us, I mean the players of EVE, not the CSM. And then it's going to be okay for them to work on Incarna. But without that convincing step, I think it's completely unacceptable for them to waste time on Incarna.
The other thing I was going to say is that a lot of people have already forgotten about the open letter that CSM 5 did several months before their term was up, and the content of that letter was basically stating, "Hey, we've seen where Incarna is going. There is no gameplay. There is no this. There is no that." And they laid out, several specific points that they saw wrong with the state of where things were, and at the time, a lot of people just dismissed it as like, "Hey, you're just, that was the wrong way to handle that. You shouldn't have done that," and everything else. But it turned out to be almost Nostradamus-like in the way that it just every single thing that they were complaining about came true. I mean, just everything. So, it's not like this problem wasn't seen by the community. It was something that was just basically glossed over or ignored or whatever you want to call it. I mean, Hilmar and a lot of other people have made plenty of official comments from CCP's side again. So lesson learned, hopefully. So, in the next time that they get ready to do this, as Two Step said, hopefully we will get a proper preview and be able to say yay or nay. And they're only going to get one more shot at this, I think. They've only really got one more chance to get this right because of what happened before.
Well, I feel like the thing with the open letter was that at that point, CSM wasn't willing to give them the faith that it would turn out good, because they had already seen the inner workings of CCP and said, we know you guys aren't just going to be able to say trust us and it's going to work. But at that point, the player community still said, walking in stations, and they all had their own ideas in their head about what it meant, and CCP wasn't saying publicly what it really was. So people kind of dismissed that open letter because they're like, no, of course they won't release, Incarna without any gameplay. If you had said at the time that letter came out, Incarna is going to be a single-player, dark, dingy closet where you can barely see yourself, and it's going to overheat your graphics cards and melt your computers, people would have said, no, CCP would never release that. But, that's exactly what they did.
Oops.
I tell you, man, there's two easy wins in Scott's limited perspective that they could implement with Incarna that would probably make a lot of people happy. One, let me look out a fucking window. I was watching Clear Skies 3 the other day. Hang on. I was watching Clear Skies 3 the other day, and I don't know if you've seen it, but he's in the station, and he's watching the undock port. If I could walk my avatar out of my dingy, dark captain's quarters to the undock port and watch the bubbles being dropped outside and see that there's a Thunderdome going on, I know I can undock. That's an easy win. And two, if I can drop my pants and press my ass cheeks against the window and moon the people outside, I'm sold. I would actually be interested in Incarna. Beyond that, I don't care.
I have no comment to follow.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on the ass cheek. I mean, that sounds suspiciously like Riverini's CSM campaign.
I was waiting on panties, but it just never happened,
No, I was just being facetious. I felt his aura come in.
Yeah, but I mean, it is funny. I mean, seriously, there's this very, very old, very kind of poorly done Photoshop, but it's really funny, and it's just basically a picture of the inside of the Amara station, and there's these giant windows, and outside you see like the big pirate from Lazy Town outside going, it's like, yeah, only look out your window and see what's out there. That'd be great.
But on a serious note,
I am serious. I'd like to know if there's pirates outside.
Well, that's what it's good.
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
But were there any questions for each of you that really stood out as, wow, that's a really good question, or that's something I would like to definitely take back?
I'm going to say the question about the person who wanted to have sex with me really stood out as a really good question. Right at the end, I got emailed do you want to have sex with me, please? Was the entire text of the question. I thought that was excellent.
At least they were polite.
Yeah,
Well, there was I think this was before you showed up, Two Step. There was one that was basically talking about the GMs, and there was someone complaining about, it's taking 14 years for them to answer my petition, and all this stuff. And it was basically the GM. CCP's done a pretty good job with kind of putting a face on the developers, and you know who CCP Guard is now, and you see him walking around talking to everybody. And
this wasn't after I left. I was the one who said this.
Was this about the video dev blog for the GM?
Yes, I said that.
Then you showed up earlier, and I thought you did. But anyway, yeah, that was one of the things that I remember, was that it would be really nice if they would put a little bit more of a spotlight and show that the GMs aren't just like these hairy animals that they put down in a cave in front of computers to answer petitions.
They do kind of have a cave-like room, though.
Yeah, they do, but it would be really neat if they would take some lights down there, and just kind of show kind of like, this is what happens when you submit a petition, and this nice person here is the one that tries to help you with it and everything else, and then there's cake at the end of the video. I don't know, I
think it would be fantastic if they just actually followed a real petition all the way through. Like, we're going to answer this petition right now.
Yeah,
okay, this person said they lost their ship. Let's pull up the logs and zoom in on the screen and show you exactly what the logs say. I mean, maybe there's some privacy issues and they could blur a few things out or whatever.
I mean, there's a way that they could do it.
Or have it be a fake CCP petition by some CCP person or whatever. I don't care, but follow it really through, because I feel like the thing with the GMs is that people do think they're like this faceless machine that just exists to say no to people. And, being able to find out that they really don't have that information, and it's not their fault, that you can blame the developers for that. I mean, they don't build enough logging facility into Eve or whatever. I mean, I think that would be a very valuable thing. People might have a little more slack. I also think there's just too many whiny people in Eve. I mean, if you look at the number, there has to be some kind of petition limiting thing. Like, if you should only get a certain number of petitions a year, or I don't know.
Wow.
Let's say you get 3 petitions a year, and if it's a legitimate petition, then you get it back. Like, you get it credited back,
Like challenge flags in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know people who say every time I lose a ship, even in PvE, because they're like idiots, they file a petition and try and get reimbursement. Right? I mean, there are tons of people. I know. I mean, that's why there's a million petitions.
I guess true. I think that the funny thing is that I guess I remember that there used to, I guess that really does still happen today. I wonder if it's still as prevalent as it used to be.
I'm space rich.
No.
You don't need to file petitions when we lose some.
This has nothing to do with space rich, Josh, and you know that the people that have are just as likely to say, like, oh, I feel offended by this. The game fucked me, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to do the exact same thing. It's just I don't think that money has anything to do with it. I think they just think, as you said, some people are they're going to do it because they, hey, I want my free stuff back or something. But
yeah, I mean, because there's no penalty. If I lose a ship in PvE, why shouldn't I file a petition? What's the penalty to me filing a petition? Nothing.
Well, especially when people actually do get reimbursed for things.
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, I think PvE, at least what I've heard from people who file petitions for PvE, is they get reimbursed a lot. I mean, they're pretty much like the benefit of the doubt they give them on PvE. And maybe I shouldn't say this on the radio because now people are going to be filing petitions for their PvE ships. But it's retarded. I mean, you shouldn't just be able to do that with no penalty for saying, for being wrong.
I want to rescind my acceptance of Scott's Skype thing because now I have a giant bloody hand on my screen. That's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
Sorry.
That's what happens when you
I'm staring down Sarah Michelle Gellar's tits. So
that's what I'm saying. You look at me, you get Buffy's tits. I look at you, I get a bloody hand. This isn't balancing out here.
You think Buffy, and then you hear your voice, and there's a cognitive dissonance here, Seleene. I mean, it just doesn't work, you know.
Yeah, but it's still it's sexy though, you know. I like being like all, you know. It's that Sun Tzu thing.
You like being sexy and girlish.
Yeah. I like
that's why he has a female avatar.
That's right, dude. I knew when I created her, it's like I'm gonna probably look at this chick for the next 10 years. I want to make it as sexy as I can. That's the whole. And you and your avatar is like literally the grumpy old bastard.
Yes. Yes, it is.
By the way,
I pushed random a few times. Like, got something that looks reasonable. To tell you the truth, I had to get in game when that patch came out. Like, there was something I.
Oh, I remember you telling me that. Yes, you just went click, 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 click. I want to play.
It was bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did that. We all ended up with like bald Caldari and shit.
Yeah, well, I think they said in a blog that they're going to give people a resculpt, because now they're going to do new skin color options. So maybe I'll take this chance to.
Now I'll get to see what your character really looks like.
Right? I don't know. Can I change my face? A politician, it seems like a bad idea.
Politicians never change their face.
God no.
Now, here's one. Can't we do something like the Imprian Age where you had the broker who was able to jump into totally different races? I mean, come on, let's mix it up. Race has no.
Well, I know, there's Misa Aranthanil on the CSM is really angry because he thinks that his person looks retarded or something.
Well, he does.
Well, he does, but yeah. And so he really wants to be able to change bloodlines or I don't know what. So, I mean, I think it seems kind of silly that, like, this decision that you made, well, if you're a really old player like me, you made the decision because you wanted to get the minimum charisma before there was remaps. So you either, if you were before the new bloodlines, then you picked like Amar, or I guess there's one of the Kaldaris was good or something. I don't know. But then afterwards you picked all the Achura, so there were all those Achura people. And then after the remaps, it was like, okay, well, this is a completely meaningless decision, so pick whichever one you randomly click on. And now that, like, and you might have had a guy who you liked, but now you can't recreate that person with the new character creator. So it's kind of,
I'll tell you who's. I'll tell you whenever if you I mean, if you read the books and you get into the lore, it's kind of spooky enough as it is when you think of like what actually could happen. But if you ever sit down and actually talk to Torvi, I mean, this is a dude who, I mean, he was like, the brain trust behind a lot of some of the darker stuff that goes on in Eve, and I mean, he's just like, oh, absolutely, if you had all this quantum technology and everything else, I mean, I'd be a girl this day and I'd be a boy the next day and I'd be a this that day and I'd be this color and that color and everything. Oh, I'd have a different body for every day of the week. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, you could actually do that with this technology. Holy shit, man. It's kinky and crazy and, I mean, why not?
You want to resculpt your jump clones to have a female and a male jump clone.
Sure, dude. You're sitting. I mean, I've got hundreds of billions of ISK. I own my own planet and all that. What else am I going to do with myself? Let's explore the other side one day. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, people who have money in real life are already insane. If you have like hundreds of billions of fake space dollars in a spaceship and all this other stuff, what else are you really going to do? You would literally go insane. You'd be bored. So I'm sure that there's some special psychoses that would develop in like this.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, we're all like mass murderers, right? I mean, we have all the crew on our ships and we take them out and we carelessly throw them all away.
I stopped NPCing specifically because of that. When I realized all of the innocent crew members that I was killing, I only kill like,
Well, they're pirates, so it doesn't matter, right?
I only kill people that deserve it now, Like,
how many ships have you lost?
Couple.
The question is how many
those crews are dying. You're sacrificing this crew.
Things like that, all that,
Their families are well compensated, I tell myself.
I'm going to name this episode the CSM RPs.
Yes, every crew member of my ship has a premium insurance policy for their family and such. That's why they gain experience.
Seleene is space rich.
Come on. You live in a friggin' wormhole.
You have far more ISK than I do, Seleene.
Yes, probably so, but still, it's not like you're sitting there living in the the Eve equivalent of a cardboard box.
I'm not exactly poor. I'll admit that. I'm not exactly poor. But I worked for my money. I wasn't, one of these old rich people who got all the T2 BPOs from the lottery and all that.
For all of the flack that the whole Alliance presentation thing caught, I think one of my favorite moments of that thing was whenever that guy that kid couldn't have been older than 18 or 19 years old was up there talking about the wormhole corp that he ran.
The Dark Space Initiative. Yeah, those guys are cool.
And he had this one slide that was basically he had a Tengu up there on the screen that was basically just like a salvaging, loot whoring, cargo expanded Tengu. And he said, "This is the kind of problems we have in wormhole space. We're just so rich that we use Tengus to salvage stuff." You know what I mean? Or something.
Great.
It was fantastic.
We used Rorquals for salvagers.
Oh my god.
Hey, that tractor beam bonus, man.
Yeah, but tractor beam. It's for dude.
See, I know.
There's a dude in Aharm who bought T2 large salvage rigs. They're like 700 mil each for his Rorqual.
Yeah, but I mean, why not? You know,
I'm
gonna jump into my female clone tomorrow and salvage. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Eve is a dark and kinky place, I guess.
Check. Promo.
If you've never heard that before, your alliance sucks. Go to Blink, get free stuff. Be cool on comms, baby.
Summer Blink. Micro lotteries that finish in minutes.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing so hard I have to mute the mic. I'm sorry.
Where did kinky come from?
Is this not going
we were talking about being
planned?
Rich, all of a sudden you go straight to kinky. I'm a little confused.
So am I.
This is great. No, this is
bloody hand in
fantastic.
my face. It's fucking with my brain.
You're gonna have to explain the bloody hand, because
Scott is the host. We were on 12 podcasts through the TEN network. Yeah. Scott is the host of our Walking Dead zombie podcast.
Well, that explains it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's his thing right there. That's his
and for the listeners at home, his avatar on Skype is a giant bloody hand print, I guess.
And yours is even scarier because you're like that silhouette with a question mark where the head should be. I
haven't made a Skype avatar. I guess I should use my normal one.
I just realized that if I actually saw that coming down a hallway at me, that would scare me more than almost anything. It was like, I don't even know what that is. The universe doesn't even know what that is. It's a question mark on the top of someone's head. Spooky.
You've been breathing that swamp air too long, Mark.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
He's the thing from Prometheus. Whatever. I went and saw Battleship today, okay? My brain's
Why
fucked.
did you see
Why?
What's wrong with you?
I haven't raged at a movie harder since Independence Day. It's glorious.
I'm sure. Did you
God.
see Green Lantern? That was terrible.
Yes, Green Lantern. The science of Green Lantern is amazing compared to Battleship.
Oh my God!
Yes. Ships that can travel interstellar distances and then leap around like bullfrogs in the ocean. Totally plausible. The movie forgetting that there is an entire infantry division stationed in Hawaii. It's like half a dozen aliens take over a mountainside. It's like, where's like the fucking fourth ID and all this stuff. And I mean, I don't understand the number of times that the people in this show had the opportunity to launch cruise missiles and take this out or that, and they're sitting there with their little 5-inch going, the guns jam. It's like you have 87, or you have like 84, 80 something vertical launched cruise missiles. Probably a couple with nuclear warheads on this Arleigh Burke class destroyer, and you're bitching about the gun being jammed, so let's ram the alien ship that just traveled across the galaxy.
Wait, you're spoiling it.
In the water. No, I'm not spoiling shit.
Oh, now I'm never going to be able to see it. You spoiled it.
Yeah, I know. Well, hey, Rihanna's in it, and she is actually one of the best people acting in the film.
Oh, that's horrible.
That's sad.
Dude, the movie has Liam Neeson in it. Liam fucking Neeson is commanding an aircraft carrier. How do you have an alien invasion movie with Liam Neeson in it and he doesn't get to kill an alien? The movie fails.
No kidding. He's a Jedi master and he doesn't get to kill anybody?
Oh no, dude. He's the dude that survives the wolves, dude. You got to go see. Well, I don't know if he survives it. You got to see The Gray. If you haven't seen The Gray with Liam Neeson.
Dude, no, I haven't seen that.
That is some good shit. Liam Neeson is the fucking man. If I was ever kidnapped and sold as a sex slave in France, I would want Liam Neeson to be my father and come get me. Absolutely. He is the man.
In France, huh?
You never saw Taken? God, you guys.
That was a good movie. Taken was a real good movie.
Clearly you just see every single movie since you saw, all these movies and Battleship.
Listen, in all honesty, the funniest part about the Battleship thing was my dad actually wanted to go see Battleship because he thought it was a new Transformers movie. That was really funny.
It did look just like Transformers. When you see those previews, you're like, is this Battleship Transformers edition or something? What's going on?
minutes into the movie, and he's literally like, oh, wait a minute, I thought this was another Transformers movie. I just looked at him like, oh my god. And there's so many, but there's lens flares out the ass. It looks like a J.J. Abrams production at a couple points. It's amazing.
Oh my god! The second I saw produced by Hasbro, I was like, "Oh no, I can't."
Yeah, but the CSM meeting was great, man.
Hey, that's what we were talking about. That's right.
Well, since we've been talking about it, there is one thing I wanted to bring up. It seemed like there was a couple people that were butthurt about something that was said, and I figured we might as well just talk about it to get those people blown out of the water here.
So we get to talk about Chester now.
Well, yeah, I guess indirectly. Alec had stated at one point, somebody had said something, I don't remember the exact context, you guys will be able to correct me, but it was like people in high sec with war decks, and they just want to play the game, and they don't want to be involved in wars. And Alex said, like, well, they can stay in the stations, or they can play it smart, or they can go play another game. And apparently a lot of people latched on, well, a minority latched onto this and were butthurt by it. What do you guys think about that? You think it's just being blown out of proportion?
I mean, I guess I have some sympathy because there are a lot of people who play EVE for whatever reason like a single-player game, right? I mean, they just want to kind of tool around, and maybe they're doing some industry, or maybe they're running missions, or maybe they're doing incursions or whatever, and maybe they interact with a few other people, but they don't really want to have their game ruined. In theory, it's possible, both in the old war deck system and as far as I can tell in the new one, for me to just kind of ruin those people's games. I mean, I can take my 10-man PvP corp and I can war deck, 100 little 5-man corps, and, those guys can never really tell if it's safe for them to undock and stuff like that. And, some of the exploits are getting closed with the new war deck system, and some of them aren't. And, I do worry about stuff like all the ally system and how that can be used to kind of get free permanent war decks for a bunch of people and stuff. But, I mean, there's an issue there, and there's an issue of, how do you give people some degree of safety, but not total safety? I mean, people who get suicide ganked for the first time, I'm sure it's quite a surprise to them a lot of times, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who send you Eve mails if you're out suicide ganking. I've seen many of these Eve mails posted. I don't really do suicide ganking, although it seems like it'd be fun sometime. Who, say, wait a minute, you can't blow me up, it's high sec. And I don't think CCP necessarily does the best job of explaining to people that, yes, you can be blown up in high sec, and if you play it like a single-player game, you might not know that until someone actually goes and blows you up. So, I have some sympathy for them. But at the same time, I think it's quite clear that CCP's view is that EVE is a cold, dark place, and it's not supposed to be easy mode. It's not, it doesn't prevent you from activating your guns in high sec, and there's a reason they don't do that. It's because it's supposed to be a place where there's risk everywhere. And from my point of view, when I go off and I play other MMOs, which I've done on occasion, what keeps me coming back to EVE is the fact that in other MMOs I die and I just respawn and I go back into it. And that doesn't really matter to me. And in EVE it really does matter, and you can lose everything you've worked for years in one bad decision. And that's what makes it appealing, and that's what makes it fun in the end, even if you're not totally realizing that at the time you get, your hauler full of everything you own and your entire life blown up. It really is a good thing that can happen in EVE. And, so I guess I do agree with what Alec said. That is the EVE is not going to change. They're not going to turn off, gunfire on neutrals in high sec, I hope. That's not the kind of game that CCP wants EVE to be. And if you think that's the kind of game you want to play, then really you should go find a different game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just kind of take a deep breath when a lot of these things start happening in game, and it's a little easier to not freak out about these days as it might have been this time last year, because I'm relatively certain that when all of this goes live, they are going to keep an eye on it. And we're going to, and the CSM is definitely going to help them keep an eye on it. Because, I mean, there's a couple aspects of the new war deck system especially, and the, quote, mercenary marketplace that I'm not particularly happy with. And I think that the only way that some of these things are going to get, fixed or iterated on or updated is sometimes, I mean, the old saying about, breaking a few eggs to make an omelet is very apt here. I mean, this is a massively huge multiplayer game, and sometimes you just got to, sometimes some stuff's just going to hit the servers, and the point's going to have to be proven, kind of like Incarna was last year, I guess. before you'll realize maybe we should tweak this a little bit. The difference now being that I think that CCP is much more apt to tweak and iterate on things as they were than they were last year. So I'm not necessarily dismissive of some of the concerns. I'm just kind of taking a bit more of a measured approach to it, and I think that for better or worse, hopefully things will work out somewhere along the line. I mean, they are going to be. CCP has been very good about coming out with little point patches, and they always do like a big 0.5 patch after every major release, or at least they've traditionally been doing that. So we do have some time, and they do have the resources that are ready to dedicate to anything that really makes a mess of things.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's been really encouraging to me, and I think they've said this publicly as well as the CSM, is that, in a lot of cases they are planning on iterating on this stuff that's going out in Inferno right away. And in the past, it's kind of sometimes they've come back a lot longer. I mean, they just rebalanced incursions after having not looked at them for a year plus or whatever. I mean, so I am optimistic that there's a lot of stuff they wanted to get done that isn't going to be in this Inferno release, and I think that there'll be another release in a couple of months that will probably have a lot more. So hopefully some of the obvious holes. I mean, stupid stuff like the fact that if I'm a mercenary corp, once I agree to help someone in a war, I can't unhelp them. I mean, that seems ridiculous to me. I can't imagine being a reputable mercenary organization and saying, okay, fine, you pay us, X billion ISK and we'll come help you fight your war. But if your war goes on for 3 years, we're locked into that for 3 years. I mean, how do you possibly price that? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think there are some really obvious holes. And there's some obvious ridiculous things, like, for example, if you're a large nullsec organization, you can't afford to war deck anyone anymore now, because, I mean, it's not that it doesn't cost you anything, but if you war deck some little corp, then that little corp can just call in an unlimited number of allies, including, all of the various JITA camping people, and they'll get free war decks against you. I mean, there's some kind of really, really large holes that you could drive many, many spaceships through.
And they are going to see this happen. And when they see this happen, they're going to
yeah, maybe we need to rethink this. And I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to be a player. It's frustrating to be a CSM person because, we've seen this stuff. We've told them about these holes. We told them about them, well before they were made public. And at some point it just becomes, we don't have enough time to finish that stuff that is on our list. We know that needs to be done. We just can't get it done for this release. So let's get the first stuff out there. And as long as they really do follow through and really do have a release in a couple weeks or a couple months that fixes those big holes, I think, it's not like they're, making, removing ammo from the game or something that the game's going to be totally broken for months. It's going to be wrong, and there's going to be some weird stuff with war decks, and maybe people will have some fun with it, maybe people will not have some fun with it, but it'll be change and they'll fix it. I'm reasonably confident.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm reasonably confident because there's a few there's a few people on the CSM that are very, 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 very adamant about, look at this. And they're not going, and we're not going to let it go. So yeah.
Right, and we know it is on the. I'm looking at the schedule for you got your meeting coming up here next week, and I do see that you have Thursday, May 31st, War Decks and Crime Watches on there. So again, you guys have the chance to sit down and bring this up again with them face to face. So we know it's going to be addressed.
Yeah, that was Go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say we made sure to put the stuff on the schedule that was being. I mean, normally in the past, it would be silly to put that on the schedule for a CSM meeting because they say we're done with that stuff. We're moving on to the next new shiny thing that we've seen. But in this case, it really does seem like their commitment is that they're going to continue to work on it. And so ideally, I mean, we won't have much time to get feedback, but we'll have a week. And people will really see what happens when it hits the server and really get a feel for what's going on. And for Wardex, a week is probably not enough time, being as Wardex lasts a week and all that. But, at least people will be able to have, say their thing publicly and have a real public reaction to it. And we can take it to CCP and say, hey, look, everyone in EVE is now at war because someone's declared war on someone else and everyone's pulled them in with an ally. And this is kind of stupid. Why are you, this isn't a good system. I think that it'll be really good to take it to CCP and say, hey, look, broken, fix, and hopefully they'll have, an opportunity to fix it sooner rather than later.
Cool. Scott, you got anything on that?
No, that's great. I'm glad I saw some of the gaps myself, and I'm glad that it's being addressed. I have faith, so we'll see. I mean, like you said, the iterative patches have been coming out a lot more frequently, and they're committed to making it right. So even if it comes out wrong in the beginning, that'll be one of those quick, whoops, we didn't intend for the players to use it this way, so let's fix this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that can be kind of frustrating is that you see those gaps, and basically everyone sees those gaps. And CCP isn't always they're learning to do this, but they're not as good at being honest and saying, yes, we know this is wrong, and we want to fix it. It's just that we don't have time right now. Like, I mean, for the mercenary stuff, they actually did say this. I think Sonic Clover has posted in the thread saying, hey, look, we know there should be a time limit on these ally contracts and things like that. And we know you shouldn't be able to have an unlimited number of allies as a defender and no allies as an attacker. I mean, we know this is wrong. We're going to look at it. We're going to, rethink it. We want to, we have to get something out there, and then we can iterate on it. And if they really are going to iterate on it, that's the way to do it. I mean, this is... The thing is that one of the things we've been begging for as CSM and as players for years and years is for CCP to please do some iteration. I mean, one of the things I was really running for in CSM 6 when I was running was I said, hey, CCP, once you release something, you should still have the same teams on the same job for a month after you release it, because there's going to be stuff they have to fix and things they have to iterate on, like iterate. And now they're iterating, and we really, really, really owe it to them to not yell at them for iterating. Otherwise, they'll never do this again.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, we're coming up on an hour here, guys. I'm going to give you the floor so you can bring up anything you think we might have missed or anything you want to talk about. Mark, you want to go first?
No, I mean, I think that, we've talked about the meeting. We've talked about Buffy's breasts and, various other things. So I think we've covered quite a lot of ground this evening. We're all taking off to Iceland next week, and contrary to a lot of belief, it's not all fun and games. I mean, you're literally locked. We get to the CCP HQ in the morning around 8:30 or so, and we're there until roughly 6 at night, and it's just meeting after meeting after meeting. And of course, you go out and go to the bars and go get some food afterwards. But it is a grueling pace, and we try to cover a lot of stuff over those 3 days. So once we get back from that and have a week or so to recover, then we'll set up another like town hall thing, and hopefully people will take advantage of that. Yeah, well, yeah. If we can get the minutes out, and like in less than 2 or 3 weeks, then that'd be ideal. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that I didn't quite realize actually until I had to put in a vacation request from my work for this summit that's coming up next week is that I didn't realize that being on the CSM meant that all 3 weeks of my vacation every year are devoted to Eve, which is kind of not quite what I was expecting. Because there's 2 summits which are almost usually this time I'm leaving on a Monday night and I'm coming back on a Sunday, so that's 4 days, and then FanFest and all that. It's devoting a lot more time than I would have thought, and a lot more vacation time. So, I think people say, oh well, you guys get to go to free trips to Iceland, but it's not always fun and games, as Mark says. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of stress. You have a lot of expectations from a lot of different people, and it's a long day sitting there for 8 hours talking about Eve. I mean, it sounds fun to talk about Eve for an hour or two with your buddies, but talking about it for 8 hours is tough.
Yeah, well, I know you guys catch a lot of shit from a lot of different corners, but there is a hell of a lot of us out there that really appreciate what you guys do. So thanks for the sacrifice.
And I think one other thing I'd like to point out is one of the feedback we heard from CSM 6, there's a lot of people both on the CSM and not on the CSM who are upset about the minutes and not having who said what and stuff like that. I think one of the things we're going to try and do this time, hopefully, is be a little more clear about who's saying what and who's advocating what positions, just for that whole transparency. I mean, it's part of the transparency thing that Seleene was talking about early on. I mean, we need to let everyone know, hey, I said this thing, and maybe it was a terrible idea, maybe it was a great idea, but that was me, and that's, you elected me, and if you don't like me, you should not elect me next time. But, that's definitely something we want to do.
Very good, very good. Scott, anything else before we let these guys go?
Oh, this has been great. Just wanted to say thanks for coming on, thanks for your time, and have a safe trip over to Iceland.
Yep.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you like raging at really dumb science fiction movies, Battleship is awesome.
Oh, and we do have threads up on GDIP Park if you are the kind of person who listens to the podcast but doesn't read the Evo forums, which doesn't seem like there are that many people, but you should go check out the threads if you have opinions about some of the things that seem more controversial. We have threads for people to post in and yell and scream at us.
Yeah, I'll make sure I get a link to the Vegeta Park in our show notes just in case for some reason someone can't find the EVE website. So we'll get that in there. But yeah, you got some good stuff going on. Really appreciate it, guys. And after everything settles down, because I know you're going to have a friggin' crazy couple of weeks, we'll try to get you guys back on here so we can do some wrap-ups of what happened at the meeting and all that other happy stuff.
Yeah, we'd love to.
So, all right. Well, again, thanks a lot. If you guys need anything, remember, this is your soapbox. You could always give us a holler, and I'd be happy to give you the time to hop on in here and talk to the folks.
All right. We appreciate it.
Cool.
Okie dokie.
Hey y'all, Bubba here. Things used to be nice and slow out here in the ice belt. A feller could kick back, put his feet up on the control panel, and mind the night away while watching a flick with his sweetheart Luann and making a tasty profit harvesting ice to boot. Then someone done blowed up my ship. How's a feller supposed to make billions of ISK each month if he can't get out into the ice belt to mine? Well, Luann done left me because I can't afford the things she said she needs in life. Like a shiny new faction raven with all the trimmings, and my corp is just too darn small to stand up to these bad hombres. So I thought to myself, Bubba, we need to find a way to secure our here ice belt. Then it hit me. I hustled my farm raised behind over to www.evetimecode.com and got me a whole belt load of ISK and hired me some of them fancy mercenaries I always see advertising over in the crime and punishment forums. Now I got me a nice new Mackinac, a combat team flying cover for me, and a new lady friend named Bobby Sue. And the only thing she asked me is to fill her orca hold with my ore, if you know what I mean. So y'all listen to Bubba now and get over to www.evetimecode.com and buy yourself some security, just like old Bubba here. You won't regret it.
All opinions and views expressed or published in this podcast are matters of public importance that require fair exchange of views concerning potential outcomes of any political decisions made by the alliances of New Eden from time to time. They are intended to generate public debate so as to facilitate and or correct misconceptions and actions which might tend to undermine involved parties. TN Evening News takes no responsibilities for the opinions published. Got something to share? Email eve@tacticalentertainment.tv.